What's going on, guys? Dustin here with another Star Trek the official Starships collection from Eagle Boss video. We are taking a look at the Olympic class ship, the U.S.S. Pasteur in CC 58925. Launched in the 24th century with a length of 320 meters and max speed of warp 13. Wow, that is super fast. And this design, I can't even tell what it is from the front. Side view, okay, I'll give you that, but front, I can't even right now. I'm not drinking Starbucks. To be honest, I don't like Starbucks. Here's all the information. Constructed in the Marion County Starfleet Yards. It's a hospital ship. Kind of ironic, the U.S. Kind of ironic because there was actually a Olympic class ship in World War I called the HMS Britannic, and she served as a hospital ship. Launched in the 24th century, destroyed in 2395. Sad. Length of 320 meters, top speed of warp 13. Weaponry was phasers, and captain was Beverly Pickard. In the alternative timeline, future timeline, Q's future, the U.S.S. Pasteur was operating in early 2395. In this reality, the Federation and the Klingons were no longer allies. They were often skirmishers between the two powers, which meant medical ships like Pasteur's were much in demand. This ship was commanded by Dr. Beverly Pickard, who in this timeline was the ex-wife of Jean-Luc Picard. It is clear that they had divorced some years prior, but there was still a great deal of affection between the couple, and she agreed to help him find the spatial anomaly he was looking for, despite the potential danger. The U.S.S. Pasteur was an Olympic-class ship that exists in an alternate future timeline. It had a very unusual design and featured a spherical primary hull, although its engineering hull and warp cells were much more conventional shape, similar to those found on Starfleet ships in the normal timeline. The Pasteur's other distinctive feature included a deflector strip rather than a dish, and a shell bay located in a large structure on top of the flat secondary hull. Pasteur was a purposely built hospital ship, featured the caduceus, the ancient symbol of the medical professional. That's basically traditional. You see it at hospitals, doctors' offices, promptly displaying in several places, clearly indicating its status as a medical ship. As such, as were designed to deal with medical emergencies rather than exploration or combat missions. It had several transporter rooms to cope with emergency evacuations, as well as numerous sick bays. The ship itself, Olympic-class vessels such as Pasteur, are actually very, very identifiable by their primary hull. The majority of the interior was given over sick bays and medical labs, meaning they were equipped with widespread casualties, like after a major battle. Despite the medical status medical ship, Klingons attacked the Pasteur after it crossed the borders. They had limited weaponry, very few defensive systems, making it easier to target for the much powerful Klingon attack cruisers. In the future, Q shows Jean-Luc Picard the Pasteur was destroyed by the Klingons, but senior staff beamed to safety on the Enterprise D. Nell Chilton was the flight controller on board the Pasteur, and she was killed when the ship came under attack from the Klingons. The Pasteur was essentially a traveling hospital, but ideally suited that task, but locked some of the sensor and tactical abilities of other ships. In the alternate future, Worf was no longer on the Klingon High Council, as the House of Mach had been forced him from power. Instead, he was now the governor of Hatoria, a small Klingon colony near the border with the Federation. Although this position was largely ceremonial, Worf still had enough influence to grant permission from Pasteur to enter Klingon territory. Also in this future, Will Riker became the Admiral and chosen the refitted Enterprise as his flagship. We remember the Enterprise? That Enterprise is the 3 warp nacelle Enterprise. The Dreadnought upgraded variant. So here's the ship. This was the back view. Got the impulse engines right in the smack dab in the center of that spherical hull, and the shell bay door. So here, the side view. This was what I was talking about. This was basically like your generic conventional shape, like for a starship. Got the main bridge up on the very top of the dome. Got a deflector strip that runs in the middle right here. The long warp nacelles, the shell bays right here. It's basically like a runway. And here's one thing. Never seen on screen. There was actually an Olympic class that exists in the normal timeline in the form of the U.S.S. Nobel NCC 55012. The ship fought in the Dominion War, and in 2374 it reported numerous casualties to Starfleet Command. Besides the Olympic class, the only other Starfleet vessel known to have a spherical hull was the Daedalus class starship. It serves the latter half of the 22nd century. I'm not sure if I have a Daedalus class starship, but we'll take a look at that. If they do that, we'll be able to take a look. If not, oh well, try their luck. The construction, according to the ship's dedication plaque found on the bridge, the Pasteur was constructed by the Skywalker Division in the Marion County Starfleet Yards in the San Francisco Bay Area on Earth. Wait a minute, it says Skywalker? Starfleet fan triggered. Just kidding. The dispensation. Alternate future medical ships such as Pasteur were among new Federation vessels allowed by the Klingons across their borders in order to treat Romulans who were suffering from the Turelian plague. The 7th season of Star Trek The Next Generations. This was actually one of the appropriate sound-offs. It provided popular as ever, including a rousing finale in which Picard saved the universe. Knowing that this was actually going to be the final season for the Next Generation cast, following the final original series movie, Star Trek The Undiscovered Country, the 6th one in the original timeline, it was deemed the perfect time to take Picard and his crew to the big screen and work on his first TNG feature scheduled to filming on television series wrap. That's basically Star Trek 7 Generations, and after that they dropped the numeral numbers. Kind of hiatus short by a month. Having a short break was tough, but everyone on the Next Generation had to fight fatigue in their final season. Counselor Troy was in the storyline in Thine Own Self, where she sought the advice of Commander Riker and Dr. Crusher about being a bridge command officer, while the writers actually made a conscious effort in the final season to give the female characters more to do by placing in the center of action-oriented storylines. In the episode, Interface explored Geordi LaForge's family background and revealed that his mother, Silva LaForge, was a captain of the U.S.S. Hera when it was lost without a trace. and the suppressed, and then around that 7th season of The Next Generation, there was actually a suppressed romantic feeling that Picard and Crusher had for each other, brought to the surface when they were telepathically linked or attached. You also have the lower decks that was explored, a side of life on the board of the Enterprise D that had not been seen before by putting several junior officers in the center. Now, there was some guest stars in that 7th series, such as Michelle Forbes. She reprised her role as Ro Laren in Preemptive Strike. The character ended up leaving Starfleet to join the Marquise Rebels. Robin Curtis, who also played Saavik in Star Trek The Search for Spock, played another Vulcan in Gambit. Dwight Schultz brought Ray Barclay back in Genesis. Very young Kristen Dunst played Hedwig in Dark Page. Paul Sorvino, famous for several movie roles including Paul Cicero in Goodfellas, was the cast of Worf's brother. It's actually not on here. Nicolali, after he visited producers, asked to make an appearance on the show. Now, at the end of an era, although Piller wasn't deeply involved with most of the last season, he actually remembered what he wanted to contribute to the last episode. He quoted, "It was particularly important to me because I knew that the Star Trek movie was coming out soon, and I had not been involved in that. So the finale was going to be my Next Generation legacy." And basically, it was actually decided that the final episode of The Next Generation should return back to where they introduced Q. If you actually remembered. Alright, I had to do something. That's the reason why I stopped. Sick and tired of always being interrupted. Right, anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. And it's actually a fitting thing for them to revisit our good old friend Q, John Delancey, in the final episode of The Next Generation, who actually revealed that humanity was still on trial and had to prove themselves worthy of continued existence. So that's basically where Picard actually got a possible future and all good things, where he suffered from a degenerative brain disease and living in his family's vineyard following his divorce from Beverly Crusher. The final episode went right back to the beginning and showed Picard on board a shuttlecraft being flown by Tasha Yar to his new assignment as captain of the Enterprise D. And then the last scene, the very last scene, the show featured Picard joining his senior crew and friends in their regular poker game for the first time. So here's the studio model of the U.S.S. Pasteur. It was built by Bill George, who based his design on some sketches drawn from Matt Jeffries, and this was a rejected model. The design and building the U.S.S. Pasteur studio model used in the filming of the episode All Good Things was almost unique in Star Trek history. The makers of the show employed a policy that all model ships would be commissioned and constructed by its own production team. With time pressed and no suitable model ready for filming, they found themselves in a predicament. Bill George actually came to that rescue. He's a visual effects supervisor who worked at the Industrial Light and Magic. At the time of filming All Good Things in 1994, George had already worked on 4 Star Trek films and was already a consummate modeler. Most notably, helped design the U.S.S. Excelsior in X-2000, first seen in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. In other words, George's model building skills were impeccable. Not building models for work, he likes building for fun. The U.S.S. Pasteur featured a Starship with a huge spherical primary hull, design which Jeffries seriously considered for the Enterprise, and he deemed the shape in the best possible pressure vessel for use in a vacuum. Jeffries discarded that design direction as too bulky, but that unusual shape always stayed with George. In fact, he made such an impression on George he decided to build a starship based on that design in his spare time. It was made out of wood and styrene, his modeling materials of choice, with customized neon tubes for internal lighting. Once it was built, George contacted the production team with the next generation asking if they didn't want to use it. At first, they were non-committable. They told him that they do not need a starship that was contemporary as of the Enterprise D, but which still has that unique design. The makers of TNG decided to use Bill George's model after he showed them blueprints of a ship with a spherical primary hull, and then that model was built large in his spare time and did not need any modifications before it was used for filming. And it was used for one episode and one episode only. All good things. Here's the ship right here. A disoriented Captain Picard finds himself jumping back and forth between three timelines. Past just before the U.S.S. Enterprise D, and sent to his first mission to Farpoint Station. The present and 25 years later. He has been diagnosed with a rheumatic syndrome, a degenerative brain disease. He first struggled to understand what was happening to him, but as soon as convinced it is related to the unusual temporary anomaly that has appeared in the Romulan neutral zone. As Picard makes his way to the location of the anomaly in all three timelines, he is actually visited by Q. We all know him as the omnipotent troublemaker. He reveals that he is responsible for Picard's time traveling. And my TV's messing up. And the anomaly is related to the shifts. In addition, Q tells Captain that the trial of humanity for 7 years earlier never ended and been found guilty of it being inferior. As punishment, humanity is to be wiped out. Not by the Q continuum, but by Picard himself. Now Picard must discover how he will destroy humanity and how, or if, he could stop that disaster from unfolding. In the alternate future timeline seen in All Good Things, Picard became an ambassador before retiring to live in France. Riker became an admiral. Data was a professor at Cambridge University. Worf was governor of a Klingon colony. Crusher was captain of the Pasteur. Troy had died. LaForge was a writer who married Late Brahms and having 3 children, Brett, Alondra, and Sydney. The U.S.S. Pasteur is actually named in honor of Louis Pasteur, a renowned French chemist who founded the science of modern microbiology. He invented the process known as pasteurization and developed several vaccines. In the pre-production of All Good Things, U.S.S. Pasteur was referred to as a Hope-class vessel at the U.S.S. Hope, World War II hospital ship. The name was a suggestion of Don Beck, who produced the promotional commercials for Star Trek Next Generation. It was later changed to Olympic-class vessel because the model has already been built and named by Bill George. Basically, this was a ship that was rejected, built in his spare time, and used. I wonder if he still has it. Coming up next in issue number 43. Wow, many videos so far. See a Species 8472 bioship. The first time we actually seen these before. It's an in-depth profile of this bioship, an organic vessel that can not only resist Borg ships but destroy them. How concept artists devised the look of the Species 8472's bioship. And here's the back. Now let's actually take a look at it. It's actually on my laptop right now because whenever I try to move it, this basically will, the stand will just pop out. So I'm gonna have to fix that. So here's the ship. Front is very unique. Be quiet, laptop. It just likes telling me nonsense. I do like that spherical shape. It actually resembles, spherical shape actually resembles much of a golf ball. And basically resembles the your conventional Starfleet style secondary hull. This is basically your engineering hull. The warp cells, it's actually very long. It actually cuts off to where the runway to the shuttlecrafts. Also the bay right here. Just like every other Federation ship, it has red buzzard collectors. And also your impulse engines. I think it's hard to see. It's right about, nope, back here. The bridge is up at the very top, and basically if you put this in line with a light, you can actually see that deflector strip. And yes, actually, the buzzer collectors are illuminated. That's very neat. It's actually very easy to hold, even though it is actually top heavy, because you actually got most of the die casting up front rather than back. So if I do that, it's basically very, very top heavy. Yeah, basically. So I like this ship. Looks very neat. And this Olympic class vessel is not to be confused with the Olympic class ocean liners, not the White Star Line. Yeah. Ship looks nice. A lot of good details. So, yeah. Anyway, leave a like, comment, subscribe to my channel for more of these Star Trek Starships reviews. My name's Dustin, and I will see you later.